American Action Forum's President Douglas Holtz-Eakin. Listen, Douglas, let's not talk about the tariff part just yet, because I like what you wrote today with respect to this conversation. Dispute resolution done right. The World Trade Organization and what happened with Airbus and those subsidies. And I'm trying to understand the gist of what you wrote here. Are you saying that the right way to do this is to go through the World Trade Organization?
It doesn't have to be the World Trade Organization as it's currently constituted. There are lots of things we'd like to do to improve its functioning, but the basic issue is that you have a multilateral approach with a third party that looks at the facts and says, that's not fair, and the Airbus subsidies weren't fair. And then there's a process that's laid out. There are rules. These are rules the U.S. Congress has signed on to. We joined the WTO, and you follow those rules. At the end of the day, there is the chance that there will be tariffs imposed on EU products, but they control their destiny. If they stop the practices that got them in trouble, the tariffs go away. That's a really different situation than we find ourselves in with the China negotiation. So they really stand as polar opposites on how you might go about doing this.
Okay, because, you know, the thing that strikes me with this is that our complaint, we filed a lawsuit with the WTO on Airbus in 2004. There was some resolution in 2011. But we continue to, you know, it was an ongoing process, and in 2018, more things were leveled. And, I mean, it just feels like we don't have 2 decades to resolve the China trade situation.
Yes. So I said done right. I didn't say done fast, and your complaint's a fair one. I mean, it took a long, long time. It is the largest dispute in WTO history, and it took a long time to be resolved. So I didn't say it was perfect, but I do like the idea of having something where you know what the next step is. You can prepare yourself for it. You know, markets can anticipate how this is going to play out. It's very different than we're seeing with China right now. We really don't know what the next step is. Everyone's sort of looking around trying to think, can they salvage a deal? Are we in a permanent trade war with the second largest economy on the globe? That's an unsettling situation.
Some are saying they are equating this to game theory, particularly the prisoner's dilemma. I think maybe there's something to that, but there's also an interesting part to this that you don't necessarily have in game theory, and that's the need for China to save face. So how would all of that work into this equation?
I think this is the real issue at the moment. China has a deep need to save face. The fundamental construct here is that the president hopes to cut a deal where China essentially caves, and they're not going to publicly cave. That's going to be unacceptable for President Xi and for his goals for China. And so they're going to have to find a way for them to get something out of this. At the moment, the only thing that the U.S. has as a tactic is tariffs. And so to get them to concede at some level, you have to put a lot of pressure on the tariffs, but that harms the U.S. economy. So we're in a very bad place where we have to inflict a lot of harm on our economy to maybe get the Chinese to cut a significant deal, which they might never do because they need to save face. It's a tough one, Charles.
So by the same token, though, and I know, we've heard over and over again that they play the long game, although I do question whether or not, I don't know that they would have a Made in China 2025 plan. If they're, why wouldn't it be 2035, 2055? I think China can smell the opportunity to become the preeminent country in the world right around the bend, if you will. And, and this kind of a war can certainly delay their grand ambitions for much longer than they anticipated.
I don't think we should kid ourselves into thinking that somehow China is going to change what it wants to do. It wants to become the preeminent economic
and there's nothing wrong with that, though,
power in the globe.
Right?
That's all there is to it.
Right. The point is, though, there's something wrong with it if they use our technology to do it, and some people think unfair trade policies, including massive subsidies, to do it.
And I think from the beginning, we've seen the administration identify China as the bad actor on the globe. It's also true that other countries know that China is the bad actor on the globe. So they've taken a strategy where they have negotiated one-on-one with the Chinese. They've exerted a lot of pressure on them and their economy. The tariffs are further pressure. It is their hope they'll get a deal. I can't judge that in advance. I hope they get a good deal, clean up the IP protection, clean up the bad trade practices. But if they don't, what then is the next step?
Right.
That's my question, and that's something we'd like to know.
Well, I read your work every day, and that helps me understand it, and I appreciate you coming on, Doug. Thank you very much.
Thank you.